right, thank you for coming again to Math Communities that Include Families. This is our third session, so really excited about it today. We are going to be trying some different things again, so bear with me. I hope it goes well. We got some inspiration from some questions that got asked to me, so we'll just see what happens. So again, to let you know why we're here, we're just trying to create experiences for families and the school that connect the mathematics together for our students, both home and school mathematics, and let our families kind of know what's happening in math. So you don't keep hearing those complaints like, oh, this new math. How many people have seen The Incredibles 2? Did I talk about that the last time? Yeah, like they're even making fun of new math in that movie. I'm like, so sad. Just to get us centered and ready to go, we're going to do an inclusion activity today with the focus question, what was your first job? So the way we're going to do this at your tables, you don't have to get up for this one. Just going to do a round robin style, and we'll have the person with the most black on today is going to be the starter. And once you guys have finished, try to explore the possible relationships between your first paid job and your current work. So ready, go. Okay, I'm looking for two people to share either an interesting job that they had or that they heard someone else had. So just looking for two people to share something out. What's the most interesting job that you had or that you heard about? Okay, we have one, and we're looking for one more, two. Okay, go ahead, Jennifer.
Melissa had a job that she learned about, but what I thought was really interesting is just that right away, like many of us, our first jobs probably wasn't our favorite job. She did not enjoy it, but was able to really learn how to appreciate people and listen to people and work with people.
Absolutely. Did you have to put shoes on people's feet for them?
Yeah. And there's something called wallpapering at a shoe store where you have to pull out every box so it's like out the same. So all the time when I'm at shoe stores now, I'm just kind of like really constant.
That's good to be aware of and think about because someone has to put those all back.
It was just really boring.
Aw. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Jeffy delivered the advanced newspaper, right?
In the third grade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because connection was there was a lot of scratch. We had to like the newspapers and put them in the back or roll them up, and so that connected to you because we have a lot of scratch now.
How early did you have to get up, or was that the afternoon one?
The afternoon, my dad signed me up.
Did you make bank though? I mean, for a third grader?
I think like $5 like a time, and I had to pay like my sister. I think it was $75 to go with me.
Well, at least you paid your sister. I had a good friend who would invite me to spend the night because she had to deliver the paper in the morning, and then I would help, and I didn't get paid. We had to get up at like 6 a.m. Finally, I caught on. Yeah, I'm like, I'm not spending the night at your house anymore. Well, thank you for sharing that, and that just gets us grounded and connected to just why we do the work that we do, and it's just funny to think way back on those old jobs that we used to do. Can you picture third grade, like, who teaches third grade? Yeah, can you picture your third graders delivering the advanced newspaper right now?
No. I have a third grader of my own, too. No, I'm kudos to you.
Okay, so our outcomes for our work today are really going to be in the yellow. So if you just take a moment to look at those, I underlined choral counting. We are going to get a peek at choral counting today. We're not going to talk about counting collections, minus some of you may be talking about your experience with it over the past couple weeks. But we're going to focus on a little bit of choral counting, and then I have some other activities, surprises up my sleeve for us to try today. And then our agenda, we've got our agenda and outcomes, and then kind of visiting our past work, that little bit of oral counting that's supposed to say game time on it, but it didn't update. And then brainstorming, what are you going to do between now and then we meet again in February, so we have quite a big chunk of time to try some different things. So what we're going to do is something called mix, freeze, pair today. And so what that is, that allows us to work with different partners and hear different experiences. But you're going to walk around and just kind of move. I'll have some music on in just a moment. And when I turn the music off, you find someone to partner up with really quickly. And then what you're going to share is, what did you try as a result of our last session? If you were not here last session, maybe talk about what you tried or heard from parents the time before. And talk about how it went. And then when you hear a signal again, you're going to walk around to the music. When the music stops, you quick freeze and look around for the closest person to you, partner up, do the same thing. And we'll try that a couple of different times so you can hear a few different perspectives. Some of you have pictures that you took, so I don't know if you even want to carry your laptop around with you to show that. If you want, that's up to you. What questions do you have about this before we begin? All right, so our first partnership is going to be without music, but I'll invite you to stand up and find a partner that has similar shoes to you today. We'll just have some nice music to go back to your seat. Good old Tony Bennett. All right, so our next step, we're going to kind of go through the next things quite quickly. But I do want to hear from 3 people, just either their own experience or something that they heard that they thought was really interesting that they tried and the feedback that they got. So if there's 3 people who are willing to share either their own experience or someone else's that you think would be good for the group to hear about.
Well, I just picked up an idea that I'm going to use right away. It's to have to put the kids in groups and a circle and count. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. Have them count and see, where they stumbled up and try backwards, forwards, skip counting, all that.
So a counting, so each student is saying their own number and trying to, get to a certain number or get as high as they can.
And then you can do predictions from that too. Like after you count to 10, you could, you could ask us what number do you think you'll hit next time it comes around.
Or who's going to say 17?
Right.
Can I add on to that? So
Yeah.
we do that too during math, and we called it sparkle. And so they would stand in a circle and they would count like when we got. So you do groups of 5s or 10s, or so like if the number ended in 5 or 0, they would sit down. The last person standing in the middle is the winner. So
Oh, kind of like spelling sparkle, only
yes.
math.
Yeah.
And so what connection did that help bring something together? Because what were you guys talking about? I happen to be standing there. Like that supported the counting collections, right? So those things came together. And then how might that be shared with families too? Any thoughts about that, or how might they take that home or bring something in? You don't have to answer that right now, but just be thinking about that. Is there someone else? 2 more?
Dinner time or restaurant activities with your family.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with holidays coming up, another thing that will be
Yeah. So that's maybe something you can send home in a newsletter, or something that a parent or a student can go home and teach their family and then come back and talk about how it went. Or how high did Grandma and Grandpa get, What number, not how high did they get, that sounds good. Or maybe you do want to know. Hey, it's legal, so. Glad I'm with adults at the moment. 2 more people to share something that they experienced or something that they heard. Yeah, Kim?
You know, I just, with my other partners in first grade team, we've done counting collections because it's in our, our unit, but just to kind of have that okay to go back and visit it, because we would do it like for 2 days and then just kind of move on. So I shared the article with them and the importance of it, and so it's just kind of an aha, but it's simple, but it's also, something we can obtain, okay, so maybe we'll do that more than 2 times in a year, so.
Yeah, imagine the power builds the more you do it. I mean, because the complexity that the strategies that students will use will continue to grow, and it becomes easier to manage too, because I know there are some questions about the first time trying this can be quite tricky and wild, and there's stuff, and kids get really excited about stuff being there. And so once that becomes, not as cool anymore, but the actual, how many are actually in here becomes the thing, or what's another way to count it, you can go really far. Thanks, Kim. And one more. Is there anyone who was able to share something that they got feedback from parents or families that was something you think you could share with the group? Or that you heard about someone else using and they got feedback? I might throw Jesse under the table. Under the bus, not under the table. Jesse, you were able to get feedback from parents from something that you did that was kind of a simple, easy for you to do. Could you just talk about that real quick?
I just took a picture of an anchor chart that had the learning intentions for the math unit on it, and so they knew exactly what their child had to do to be successful. And then in this particular math unit, there were a bunch of different strategies for how to solve an equation. So I showed each strategy that I taught using an anchor chart and attached it to my newsletter so that parents could just visually see what I was doing, quick snapshot, and they loved it. It's just quick and easy. So some of them said they printed it out and just put it on the table when the kids were doing homework. So they had that visual at home as well.
And did it take you very long to do something like that?
No, because I know how to airdrop now. So
even better.
To get it on my computer.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for letting me put you on the spot. So keeping in mind, and I put our things that we heard from parents right up there on that wall. And remember, it was all over the board of the feedback that you got before the last session, just length of time and the amount of homework and different homework that was coming home, and some wanted just more skills practice and others wanted less of that. And it was just all over the board, but trying to keep in mind what you were able to hear from someone at your school to help frame the rest of our time. Like, what else might we do to engage the families in the math that we do? So we're going to move into just looking at choral counting very briefly to help set us up for the next activity. We're going to go deeper into choral counting in February. So I hope that's okay with you if you were expecting to do a whole bunch of it today. We will find out what it is, watch a little bit of a classroom do it, talk about it, but then we're going to move on from choral counting until next February. So if you just take a moment to look at this. The goal is not to just practice rote counting. So when I first started thinking about choral counting, I thought, what a waste of time, so boring, everyone's just sitting there counting together. The more I learned about it and thought about it and then tried it in classrooms, I was just floored by the power that it has in it for different concepts. But there's one key thing that needed to happen, and that's recording the count as you're going. And so that made the world of a difference to me. And so hopefully you'll see the power in this as we take a deeper look at it. But basically it is just counting together. And you can start at any number, you can skip count, whatever it might be. But you do it together and the teacher records the count. Now you can be really strategic about how you record. So you can record horizontally, you can record vertically. It just depends on the purpose and what you want students to notice. But we'll take a quick look. So this is a first grade classroom in September. And they're going to start a choral count by twos. So I want you to think in your mind, if you can, of a first grade class. right at the beginning of the year. And what might that look like and sound like? Just kind of get that in your mind. So at least when we watch this is one of their first times doing a choral count, so you'll get to see her set up how they're going to go about it with the expectations. Hopefully this isn't too loud from the music I had on.
Today we're going to be counting by 2. So I'm really excited, right? So, Zachary, I know you're super excited about counting by 2s, but we're going to talk a little bit about how we do a choral count as a class before we jump into it. So thanks for being ready. So, let's remind ourselves what we do in the choral count. So, Tara, when we choral count, we say with one voice, right? So, in the mornings when we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we say in one voice, right? We all say it together so that no one's going super fast and no one's going super slow. We're going to say together as a class. And when we do that, I'm going to be writing the numbers down with my pen. So right now, I want you to think about counting by 2. Some of you might have counted by 2s before, right? I want you to think into yourself. Just you can close your eyes if you need to. Think about the first 3 numbers. If you were counting by 2s, and we're going to do this with 0 voice. So think about those first 3 numbers when counting by 2. I'm going to give you a minute to quietly think to yourself. Okay, open your eyes if you have them. Tell me those first 3 numbers. Is there a way you think those first 3 numbers are? Oh, go ahead.
2, 4, and 6.
Put your thumb to your chest if you agree with what I say now. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and write those up here, the first 3 numbers we have. So I'm going to write it up here. So here's 2, 4. 4, 6. Perfect. Okay, so let's practice saying those numbers together so we can try to sing in one voice, right? Okay, go up. 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, I already hear you getting started, okay. This time we're going to go on, right? We're going to stay with Mrs. Taya's pen, okay? Thumbs up if you're ready. Awesome, okay, here we go. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Stop! Oh. What number do you think is going to come next? What number do you think is going to come next? Zachary, what number do you think is going to come next? 16. Can you tell me? Oh, JT's saying me too. I'm seeing a lot of green. Can you tell me, Zachariah, how did you know that it was going to be 16? Can you just use your words and tell me?
I see the 2 and 4.
So you see the 2. Are you seeing? Oh, so you're seeing the 2s right here and the 4s. And you saw the 6 up here, so you think it's going to be 16. And you said the 1 over here in the 10 home. Okay, so let's try it out. Let's go back to 10 and we're going to count on, okay? 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34,
prediction. I want you to make a prediction. I want you to think, what is going to go in that box right there? Quietly to yourself when you have.
So we're not going to watch this whole video. And I know it's a little bit fuzzy, but how did that recording, the way she recorded it, support their counting?
Have the numbers in order, the pattern.
And they noticed that, or at least a couple students noticed that. And so thinking about your students who aren't ready to, or who don't have that sequence yet, at least have something to go by. And then one question, she asked, what do you think is going to go here? And so there's at least some accessibility, or like I know there's going to be an 8 there, but I'm not quite sure yet what else might be with it. But at least I have something to go from. Other things you can do is just start asking, what else do you notice? And what's interesting is students will come up with all kinds of different connections, and we'll get deeper into that in February. But even like one that I know students will say later is they're like, oh, it goes 1, 2, 3 in the tens column. I don't think they use that vocabulary, but they're noticing like, oh, these are all teens and 20s and 30s and 40s. And just how interesting that is. It kind of takes the hundreds chart to another level because they are seeing different patterns here. And she could have done it vertically too. So go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and then come up to 12, and do it that way too. And just there's different things kids will notice. And so even just stopping here and there and just say, what do you notice about this? Or what number do you think is going to come next? What's going to go in this box? You can go backwards too. So there's a lot of power in here. So I want you to just have a brief discussion at your table. Like, what is the math that's happening there? It's not just rote counting. So what is some of the bigger concepts that are from your grade level, or maybe grade levels below or above you, that you think could be accomplished? Now this is by 2s, but you could easily do this with decimals, fractions. So just have a brief 2-minute conversation at your table. What's the math that's happening here? Pause your conversation wherever you are at. Oh, I don't mean to do that. Sorry, I got to just get out of the video and get back in. Okay. So these are just some different things. I heard some of these from you. These are just some different things that I thought about too. And all of this just from rote counting together. I never would have thought of this before. So in a way, and the next step that we would do is to think about what other questions might we ask, but we did hear her ask a few of them, like what comes next, what do you predict is going to be here, what do you think the first 3 numbers might be, and those are all pretty accessible questions. So if you were ever to share this with your colleagues or share this with parents to try, those are things that people can easily do. So what we're going to do next, and please bear with me because this is my first time trying some of these things with you too, is we're calling it 'Tis the Season. I got asked for what I would recommend for people to, like if they wanted to buy a game or a book for their kids that had to do with math from someone for their blog for this list. So I thought, you know what? It is something you could send home, or maybe kids make a math game to give to their family as a present and play it together. So I thought, let's try some different things here. So let's play some games that you can easily and very cheaply make a gift that they can give to their family at home. But then it would be interesting to see if you had some way to check in when they come back. Did you play it? How did it go? Or have their family fill it out. Oh, this is my son or daughter taught me the game. They did a great job teaching it to me. This is how it went. Just kind of describing the experience. You could send a family challenge home, which I think for sake of time we're going to skip that one. I just have some which one doesn't belong pictures that you can kind of look at later, but just something you can send home for families to do together. If you wanted to do like a photo collection challenge, which we're going to do here, so you guys get to get out of this room for a little bit and try to take a photo of somewhere in the ISD, that's something that you can count. But that's maybe something over the holiday break that could be an assignment. I'm not sure. These are just some ideas that I thought about. Or send home a different game that they can play at home. Not that would be a gift, but one that you can just, like I have here, a bag of random stuff that I picked up off the floor of my living room and my kids' rooms, threw it in a bag, and we'll see how this goes. So we're going to have 4 different stations. And so we'll have 4 groups, and you'll just rotate through those, just 10 minutes at each station. And so what you're going to do is each one will have just a little kind of what this is, and then the instruction sheet. So if it's a game, it'll have how to play the game. But I'm sure many of you have played Yahtzee and Mancala. Has anyone played Mancala? I loved that game. I grew up playing it in the Grand Rapids parks, like when they used to have the summer parks programs, and we would have huge tournaments of these kids from, I think I was like 5, but there were 13-year-olds playing too, and we would have these really big tournaments, and it was a big point of pride if you won. So they'll have these sheets, and what I'd like you to do, if you can see, I have these. So Mancala, with your group, I want you to think about what questions could you ask in that game to make it go deeper. And then also, what is the math that's happening in that game? Because often we don't think about some of these games as, we know there's math in it, but some of the thinking and strategizing that's involved, some of it doesn't have to do with numbers, but more predicting and generalizing and classifying, thinking about attributes. All those are really, really important foundations. And so I thought maybe this is another way to engage families in a type of mathematics that isn't looking like school math, if that makes any sense, if I can say it that way. But just something different to try, but saying this is still math, and here's the purpose of this activity. Here's why we think it's good for kids to do. That is I do hear complaints from some people that kids don't play games at home, and they don't know how to take turns, and so maybe this is just a way to get a game going in the family. I'm a big game player. I love games. I grew up playing games, but my in-laws do not like games as much as I do. So then we were there for Thanksgiving, and I was like, anyone want to play a game? And like, no. my kids wanted to. My husband did. We're like, someone else join us. But finally we coaxed them into playing some different games that they ended up having fun, but it just took a little bit. So with your group, we're going to rotate between 4 activities, not 5. And just make sure that you chart, and we're going to keep the same chart up there. So we're just going to add to it. So this is something I'm going to take pictures of and then put in our Google Classroom stream, so that if it is a game you want to send home or make with your kids, you could send home the list of questions to ask and what math is involved in the game. Just so that the parents and families understand the purpose of why we're doing that. What questions do you have before we start? I'll kind of show you what
So
each.
you said you're going to send us those questions and stuff, so we don't have to write it all down now?
Yeah. Save you some time. And then it'll be nice. I'll just put it in that stream, like where all those counting collection articles were. So this will pop up in there too. What other questions do you have? All right. So I'm going to need 4 groups. So maybe if you two join these ladies over here. That's okay. We have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we have time to finish up what we need to. Yeah. So one thing I will do is take a picture of all of our charts, and I'm going to add a few more questions and things that I thought of too, and what the math is, so that you have that, and you can use that to share if you create something to send home or something with your students. Keeping in mind that, number 1, we want to share the purpose and the why for these games. And then, what are some questions and things that you can ask to make it go deeper at home? So I hope you were able to play something that resonated with you or something that you want to try. A lot of these games and different things like this came from a website as well. Kent Haynes, and I'm going to put that on our stream. He has a website called Games for Young Minds, and it has all of that. He'll put, here's the math that's in the game, here's some variations, here's some questions to ask. And so that's another nice place to look. And I took some of his things when I made these instruction sheets. Just to clarify, Macala is played several different ways, so you can find tons and tons of different ways to play it. So instructions are not like what you used to play. That's okay. You can make it your own way. If you just Google directions, you will find, I'm sure you will find the one that you used to play somewhere in there. So the next thing I would like you to think about is, right, what would I like to try between now and February that either came from today, it doesn't have to because you might have some other thing in mind, but maybe this experience helped bring something to your mind. Maybe you want, you have a different game that you used to love that you would like to send home and play, or you have a different photo challenge, or you have something that you're thinking about. So I want you to think, what is it that you want to try, and then how are you going to collect feedback around that? So if I were to send home a game that a kid made as a present, let's say they made Macala and they painted the egg cartons and made it really cute, and then I'd want, could you either send a photo of the family playing it, or maybe write down what it was like to play, what was your favorite part, what was the hardest part, just different things like that as feedback that you can see. Did you guys even play it? Was that worthwhile? Was that, did you hear anything from a parent or something? A brother or sister, maybe that's who they played with, aunt and uncle. So we're trying to see, is this something that's happening if you send it home? Is it actually happening at home? So you'll take the rest of this time, a little bit of time, to brainstorm kind of what you want to do and set those intentions. We also have another progress monitor. So that's feedback for me and Rusty and everybody else to check in and see what's going on here. So if you can do that survey right there.
With that being said, do you guys want to add anything onto that PDF?
And then the other portion is filling in your implementation guide. What is it that you want to try? How are you going to collect evidence?
On the 20th.
You can do that on your own time, but yeah. You are free to stay here to do this, or you can do this.